Welcome to Unscrew the News. It's coming to you. We're coming to you from inside of the walls of China, trying to get the information out to the world. I am excited to bring my next guest. He has been a regular guest and sharing his knowledge of the world. I am really grateful to have him on again today. Anyway, I will bring him on here in a second, but I want to let you know that this broadcast is brought to you by nuggetstacker.com. Thank you very much for everyone joining me, and make sure to share this out to the world. We have some interesting things leading up to the election coming up in November, but without further ado, I want to bring on my next guest. It's Dr. Makis. Dr. Makis, welcome to Unscrew the News. It's a pleasure to have you again. It's as I said just before we hit record, the world has gone crazy. So much has happened. And I want to touch on all the stuff that has affected you and obviously the people around us. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Well, I do want to make sure that everybody understands Dr. Makis. If you don't know him yet, he is the amazing doctor who was probably most well known for saving family and friends from late stage cancer for many years. And then, his knowledge and his experience and research then was turned on AHS when they turned on him. And now he has, in his own right, become famous for calling out the lies and calling out, hopefully, bringing the truth to the world. So thank you very much for joining me again, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you have, I think, become ultra famous for really standing in the face of these tyrants and what has been brought forward to us in the last 4 years. And you and I have talked a number of times on some of the other things that these psychopaths, I guess, is probably the best way of explaining it, want to inflict on us again. Do you Now, before I get into obviously this deep dive, but really what's going on with you? I know that you have started a new path in regard to your research and obviously trying to help other people. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
It's interesting. I started cancer consultations about 3 weeks ago. And about 4 days after I started my cancer consultations, the Edmonton police showed up at my door, and they
The KGB.
they were sent by the College of Physicians and Surgeons, who apparently can send the Edmonton police to any Alberta citizen's door whenever they wish. And it was odd because when I saw them sort of pulling up to my house, I thought, okay, what is this about? I had a feeling it was some form of intimidation,
Right.
By the college or by AHS. Or my first thought was AHS. What did AHS do this time? Because as you know, I've been battling AHS for 8 years now, and exposing corruption, and they don't like that. They always run to court and cry about it and cry to the judge saying, Makis keeps exposing our corruption. Can you do something? Can you do something to shut him up? Like, we don't like being exposed like this every day. So when
we pay you good money to do this, so make sure to shut them up.
Exactly. I mean, the millions of dollars that AHS has spent trying to shut me up. We're trying to actually figure out what that dollar amount is. I estimate it's probably close to $10 million now, but if we can figure out what that dollar amount is and take it to the Alberta public, I think that could be very interesting. But so I see them pulling up to my house and rolling up, with all their sort of gear and everything. And I was going to have fun with this. So, I go out, and they're like, well, do you want to talk inside or outside? I'm like, let's talk outside. It's a beautiful day. And okay, why are you guys here? What's this all about? Well, the college filed a complaint, and somebody made a phone call to the college, and you spoke at this event called Injection of Truth. And anyway, so I thought, okay, how are they going to get this out? The reason why they're here. And it was a Sunday afternoon. I think if I were to report a murder, the Edmonton police wouldn't show up at that place on a Sunday afternoon. The fact that they showed up at my house on Sunday afternoon is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It just goes to show you like who runs this province. Speaking of the child sex abusers at the college and at AHS, having the power to do this. And so they were just twisting and turning. And anyways, I managed to get out of them that apparently, well, the claim is that someone made a phone call to the college and left a message. And they said, well, it was very threatening and it was very unpleasant and threatening. It was something about pedophile doctors. And you spoke at this event and you talked about pedophile doctors. I'm like, okay. And, and I started laughing. I said, if I wanted to talk to the college, I would just call up one of their lawyers because I'm involved in a legal battle with the college for years now. I don't need to be leaving upsetting messages on their answering machine or something like that. Like, it made absolutely no sense. And I think one of the police officers was extremely embarrassed to be there. The other one was kind of poking around, trying to, I think he was hoping that there was some truth to this so that he could take it back to his bosses and report and look good. But it was just so ridiculous. And I guess they had a phone number, some area code 403 phone number, and they're like, well, did you ever have a phone number like with that area code? I said no. I told them what they knew what my last two phone numbers were.
Of course.
So it was just, the whole thing was absolutely ridiculous, and I was just looking at them the whole time with this, with almost this this entertained kind of disbelief that someone could actually send them to my house on a Sunday afternoon, which was basically just an attempted intimidation, right? It was so ridiculous.
So the insinuation was, let me just try and get this straight, but they're sort of insinuating that you made the threatening phone call, because
yeah, exactly. So apparently what the college, now this is coming from them, I don't know, how much of it is true, but they claim that the college filed a formal complaint with the police about some phone call that they received. Now, I assume there's a recording of it, because one of them said that he listened to it and it was threatening. And the college said, well, we don't know who this is, but go to Makis's house
right?
Because we think it's him, right? Now,
But that's
listen
the
to this.
insane part. They know your phone numbers.
Yeah.
They probably know what you sound like.
Yeah.
And of course, it was, this is crazy.
But here's the other interesting part. I spoke at the Injection of Truth on June 17th. Now, this was a UCP sponsored event where I talked about 4 doctors who were arrested for sexually assaulting children. And they gave 2 of them their license back. And the other 2, they basically kept a clean record of their license on the college website so that parents wouldn't know that they had molested children.
Right.
Presumably so they could keep doing it again, or if they went somewhere else, they could keep doing it again. And so I spoke on June 17th. Apparently the phone call was made on June 20th. And they waited for a month and a half with this threatening phone call in their back pocket. And they show up to my house a month and a half later, 4 days after I started my cancer consultations. So I think to me, it was clearly, they knew that I had started cancer consultations. They don't know how to stop me. So right. I think this was an attempt to maybe scare me away, maybe to get me to stop doing consultations, or just to kind of flex their muscle and say, look, we still run this province and we're still going to come after you for seeing cancer patients. Now, right now, cancer patients are dying in Alberta without even getting to see an oncologist. This is the reality of Danielle Smith's Alberta. And AHS doesn't care. AHS is completely like, whatever, these cancer patients can die for all we care. They keep laundering the money. They keep stealing money. They keep paying themselves $700,000 obscene salaries. And they basically laugh at UCP. Danielle Smith will come out publicly and say, oh, well, I'm trying to do something with AHS. The college I can't touch. I mean, she's now become so scared of the college.
Right.
And AHS is laughing all the way to the bank while cancer patients are dying without even being seen by an oncologist, which means that they're not even providing basic medical services that they're contracted by the government to provide. And
I'm going to bring that up right now, that post that you made in regard to that person in Edmonton, if that's okay.
So this was a 41-year-old Stephen Wong, an Edmonton resident who was diagnosed with stage 4 gastric cancer. And the media covered this story apparently for 3 months. He is waiting to get to be seen by an oncologist. And I can tell you, I have a number of cancer patients right now who are waiting to see, they haven't even seen an oncologist yet. They've seen me. And the college is sending the police to my house and holding my license hostage so that I would sign a non-disclosure agreement with AHS for killing my cancer patients back starting in 2016. They're getting to see me and talk to me about their cancer, but they haven't been able to get to see an oncologist at the Cross Cancer Institute, where I'm being prevented from going back to my office and seeing cancer patients at my office. This is stuff that can bring down a government.
Mm-hmm.
I have probably more than enough information to bring down Danielle Smith's government. If that's what NDP had any interest in doing, is they could turn this around on UCP and say, UCP is allowing cancer patients to be murdered in Alberta. And when I say murdered, I mean that in the completely literal, direct sense. AHS is given $26 billion every single year to provide health services. Now, they use some of that money for completely illegal purposes, for purposes that Alberta taxpayers didn't give permission for AHS to use. And, one of those purposes is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on lawyers and then bribing judges so that all their crimes can be covered up. So Albertans didn't sign up for this. Albertans didn't sign up for 3,000 managers getting paid up to $700,000 each. Now, this used to be the friends and family plan of NDP, becoming an AHS executive, getting paid a starting salary of $200,000 and doing absolutely nothing, not even showing up at work, which is what a lot of these AHS managers do. But Albertans didn't sign up for healthcare money being spent on obscene salaries of paper pushers. And they also didn't sign up for AHS waging war on Albertans with over 500 lawsuits and spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year on legal fees.
500 lawsuits?
There's over 500 lawsuits that AHS is waging right now. Mine is only one of them. Actually, I had two. They sabotaged one of them, but they have over 500 ongoing lawsuits or legal actions. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars to giant law firms, and these corporate lawyers that represent AHS and cover up all of AHS's crimes, trust me, they get paid well.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get paid $200 or $300 an hour. They probably, bill AHS $1,000 an hour, and it's never one of them. It's always a team of them. Whenever I show up in court with AHS, that side of the courtroom is so overflowing with lawyers that they have to seat in the back benches where the spectators are because there's not enough space for all of them. I'm serious. It's a comedy show whenever I show up, represented by myself, and then AHS shows up with a team of 10 people, and there's so many of them that they don't all fit in the benches, and only one or two of them can speak because there's just so many of them. Albertans didn't sign up for this. So when AHS takes money from the government and says, yes, we will provide proper healthcare to every single Albertan, and then they start bribing judges, and then they start throwing money at construction companies and all kinds of deals that they make and all kinds of contracts and that they sign, and then they spend an ungodly amount on lawyers. They're misusing that money.
Mm-hmm.
That money is meant to be for healthcare. When they spent $10 million waging war against me and my family and trying to bankrupt me, that was money they stole from cancer patients. Cancer patients had to die with lack of treatment so that they could pay those lawyers to try to get rid of me for whatever reason. And same thing with Dr. Robert Nordahl at the Tom Baker Cancer Institute when they spent 4 years persecuting him because he was doing some cutting edge cancer treatments with gamma knife at the Tom Baker. Same thing when they persecuted Dr. Dennis Modry of the APP, Alberta Prosperity Project, and they spent, I think, again, 3 or 4 years trying to force him into an early retirement because some AHS bureaucrats didn't like him and spent millions of dollars persecuting him. Whenever AHS persecutes someone, Even someone like Chris Scott from Whistle Stop Cafe, or Stacy's Happy Place, or Arthur Pavlovsky. Someone has to die
Right.
because that money is stolen in order to pay the corporate AHS lawyers. So they have to kill patients. They have to withhold care in order to have the money set aside for lawyers to pay the legal fees to cover up their criminal activities. And they're doing this under Danielle Smith's watch. They're laughing in her face. And what does Danielle Smith do? She comes up publicly and says, "Oh, I can't do anything about the college. Oh my God, please,
Right.
please,
Right.
please don't touch the college. I can't do. They might throw me in jail.
Right.
If I tried to do something about the college, they might throw me in jail." I thought, when I saw her say this at the most recent town hall that she was at, I thought, yeah, this province is done.
Right.
When AHS can withhold care, and they know this patient was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. They knew this patient. They have him in his system. They could have sent a medical student to speak to him. He didn't even get to speak to an AHS secretary
Wow.
at the Cross Cancer Institute. And you see this, the mainstream media covered it. They spoke to his wife, and the wife said, "We didn't get to speak to anyone for 3 months." Now, this is a stage 4 cancer patient. So a stage 4 cancer patient, that there's an urgency there. This is not something that you could say, well, it's stage 1, who cares?
Yeah.
We'll get back to you in 6 months. This is a stage 4 cancer patient, and he didn't even get to see a medical student in Alberta. This is something you wouldn't see in a third world country.
Mm.
I'm telling you, there's probably no place in the world right now that has worse cancer care than we have here in Alberta, where a cancer patient won't even get to speak to anyone for 3 months because AHS executives, some of them, are too busy molesting children,
Sure.
and then sending the police to the people who are speaking up about it because they don't like Albertans knowing about it.
So just to summarize, it sounds like, and I don't want to mince words here, but I mean, it sounds like their incompetence and the covering up of nefarious acts are really what's hampering some of these things from actually getting solved. Is
I
that
think I think I mean, there's always an element of incompetence,
yeah.
especially when we're talking about AHS management. These are some of the most incompetent people you will meet in your life. I used to joke that the head of cancer care, who was Dr. Matthew Parliament, I would have several meetings with him. He was actually the head of the Cross Cancer Institute as well. So he was technically my boss, although not my direct boss, but he was a couple of layers
Mhm.
of AHS bureaucracy above. And when I would speak to him, I thought he was mentally challenged because he would talk very slowly. He half the time he wouldn't even know what's going on. Like, this was someone that I wouldn't put in charge of a lemonade stand. But AHS put him in charge of all of cancer care.
Right.
They sort of picked him out and just put him in charge of all of cancer care. And he was basically committing crimes on behalf of the higher ups. He was stealing money. I know he was stealing money from the radiology department because we were always short staffed.
Right.
And whenever we asked for help, we were told there's no money for help. Well, wait a minute. We are being short staffed by 2 radiologists who get paid $700,000. We have a $1.4 million missing from our budget
Mm.
every single year, and you're telling me that there's no money for us to invite a locum to read the backlog of 200 MRIs or CTs that we have in our system. So he was stealing money, and where that money was going, God only knows. But these sort of smaller managers at the various hospitals, they're stealing money left and right, anything that's not nailed down, and they purposely, and I want to stress this because I think Albertans have no idea that any
Yeah.
of this is going on. What I want to stress is that what you're going to see in the media is, oh, this emergency department in a small town in Alberta was shut down or closed because there's no doctor, or that emergency department is closed, or this, whenever there's a shortage in any hospital or emergency room or so on, that shortage is deliberate. What that means is that manager, that AHS manager, is stealing money because the government already paid for those services. When the government hands over $26 billion to AHS, they have
Mhm.
more than paid for all the services in the province that have to be provided. So when there's a shortage, when they say, well, there's an oncologist shortage, or there's a radiologist shortage, or there's an emergency doctor shortage, that is actually evidence of a certain AHS manager or executive stealing that money and deliberately having that shortage there. And they do it because they know that they can then hang that shortage on the neck of UCP or Danielle Smith or the health minister. They can actually use it to attack the politicians who are in power. And they know that the politicians will keep their mouth shut and they will not say anything about it. They will take it. They will take the blame because that money is being laundered all across Alberta. And there's high-powered corporate lawyers that will step in the moment you say something about it. And you'll get hit with defamation threats and so on. So they know that the politicians are so weak that they will keep their mouth shut while the money is being openly stolen, and the health shortages that results in are then blamed on the politicians, and the politicians will take it. They will keep their mouth shut and they'll take it. And this is how our province runs. So Adriana Lagrange, when she's blamed for the emergency departments being closed, or let's say she's now being blamed, well, with Danielle Smith, they're being blamed for cancer patients not getting adequate care. This is literally the healthcare bureaucracy laughing at all of us, really. But they're laughing at the politicians, and they're showing the politicians how weak and useless they are and who's in charge. Because for NDP and some of these associations, like the Alberta Medical Association, which had a hand in sabotaging my medical license, when they come out publicly and they know that, for example, I am being physically prevented from going to my office at Cross Cancer Institute and seeing cancer patients formally in a cancer center, and they're preventing me from doing it through lawyer threats, and they'll come out and publicly and they'll say, oh my God, there's a shortage of oncologists.
Right.
Makis? Who? We don't know any Makis.
Right.
We're holding his license hostage. He could be seeing hundreds of cancer patients who are dying without being seen. We don't know this guy, but there's a shortage of oncologists, and it's Danielle Smith's fault. And Danielle Smith comes out publicly, yes, it's my fault. Please, oh my God, please don't touch me. Please don't touch the college, or they're going to throw me in jail. When I saw that she was like cowering in a fetal position, talking about how she can't touch the college or she can't interfere in court processes or they will throw her in jail, I thought, wow, they really got to her. I mean, like this is just, they're just laughing. They're laughing at the politicians and they're laughing at all of us. I had an AHS insider actually tell me when Jason Kenney was elected, and I was kind of excited, and I thought, well, okay, Jason Kenney's going to start to clean up AHS. I had an AHS insider basically laugh and tell me, and they said, Jason Kenney's not going to help you. Right. I thought, wow, how do you know that? He's literally just been elected in a landslide, with a conservative majority. That was really a landslide. And, he talked about, looking at AHS and the mismanagement of money and sort of the waste of the bureaucracy. And I met with one of these AHS insiders, and they laughed and they said, Jason Kenney's not going to help you. The Conservatives are never going to help you. And I thought, how the hell did they know that? And they knew, and they were right. They were absolutely right.
They were 100% right on the mark. And we're in.
These politicians are compromised the moment they're elected.
Right. Now, did you have the same, or did you have any sense that this might be a better fit with Danielle Smith? Did you have any?
No, at that point, I wasn't really in touch with anybody. What I found interesting about Danielle Smith initially is that she was the only person I have ever heard in politics talk about dissolving the college.
Right.
And I don't know where she got that idea from, because that is blasphemy in Alberta. That is, you can't say something like that, right? Especially about an institution that is part of the elite that runs the province. That someone would talk about dissolving the college. So she knows about the college. She knows that the college is the key to controlling the doctors. And NDP has spent many years and a lot of
short
efforts.
interruption. Very excited to announce that Nugget Stacker now has a silver subscription. As silver has gained a 29% return since January, now is a good time to start your silver subscription and start buying monthly before it really explodes in price.
And NDP has spent many years and a lot of efforts trying to corral the doctors to their side, because the vast majority of doctors were conservative.
Mhm.
And the reason why they were conservative, well, one of the reasons is that, you know, doctors have corporations, medical corporations, and that's how they sort of bring their income into a corporation. So then they can pay, the 8% corporate tax instead of the 50% personal income tax. And of course, they can then keep the money in the corporation, invest it, grow it, and so on. So, and this is more of a conservative mindset, right? Lower
Right.
taxes, lower taxes, lower corporate taxes, and all that. So doctors were mostly conservative, and NDP has spent the last 8 years working extremely hard trying to get doctors on their side and to say, no, no, doctors are on our side and they support us. They support NDP. And I think for the most part, the doctors are probably still conservative, but anyone who's in the public, any doctor who has any sort of a media platform or social media platform is openly pro NDP and against UCP.
Hmm.
To the point where the Dr. Paul Parks, who's the president of the Alberta Medical Association, he will be constantly bashing the UCP. He will be bashing anything that Danielle Smith or Adriana Lagrange do in terms of healthcare, and they'll do photo ops with him. They'll do photo ops with him, and he'll be bashing them openly, publicly. All the doctors you see in Alberta are bashing the UCP nonstop, 24/7. Dr. Joe Vipont, Dr. Darren Markland, Dr. Shazma Mithani, Dr. Tassin Lada. These are now some of them are NDP activists. They're pictured with NDP MLAs. They go on strikes. They wear their masks up to their eyes, right?
Mhm.
When the mask mandates were on, and they were saying, "Oh, the masks don't harm children." All of this, all of the airtime in Alberta that was given to any doctor, that doctor was pro NDP and virulently anti UCP. So you'd say, okay, well, UCP must have doctors that come out in support of UCP and UCP policies and so on, right? So there I am on a UCP event, speaking with UCP flags behind me, and about a month and a half later, I get the police sent to my house because I spoke at a UCP event. And we were speaking about the COVID vaccines on the childhood schedule and so on. So if you're a doctor and you want to support the UCP, they'll have the mafia will have the police sent to your house, right?
Well,
And you know
unless,
and you know what
unless you're
UCP
following their mandate, their mantra, right? I mean,
and you know what UCP did to support me publicly through this? The health minister came out in support of the child sex abusers who were arrested by the RCMP, and she said, "Don't say bad things about the child sex abusers.
of
We
course they
we,
had
we
to.
respect our pedophiles in this province. We respect our child sex traffickers, and we don't want other doctors who might be molesting children or trafficking children to not want to come to Alberta.
Yeah,
So don't you dare say
this
bad
is a
stuff."
thriving business, don't you know?
My goodness. So when a spokesperson, and I'm not like I'm being serious here, when the spokesperson for Adriana Lagrange
Yeah,
came out and said, "Oh, we don't agree with the statements made about doctors," and it's not true. She said that the information that I gave about the 4 doctors who sexually assaulted children and were giving their licenses back, she said that's not true. So she's either saying that the
yeah,
RCMP is lying when they arrested those guys, or that they didn't sexually assault those children and RCMP made everything up.
right.
Okay, maybe RCMP is capable of making things up. We've seen that with the Coots 4, right?
Yeah,
But in this case, it was. I mean, one of them's in jail and has been in jail for 5.5 years, and to be thrown in jail for sexually assaulting a child in Canada instead of being promoted to deputy prime minister.
yeah,
Man, there must be a gigantic mountain of evidence for you to end up in jail and not get a promotion in politics. So for the health minister to come out in support of the child sex abusers, which she did, a few days after that event, where I spoke for the UCP,
Yeah.
showed me that who's in charge. It ultimately, this always shows you who's in charge.
Right. Right. Well, who you can question, right? Always shows you
And who you
who's.
can't,
Yeah.
and who has the ability. And this blew my mind. Who has the ability to send the police to Alberta citizen's house on a Sunday afternoon? Like I said,
That's crazy.
like someone could be murdered,
Hmm.
and the Edmonton police won't take the effort to investigate the same way that they did when they came to my house.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, and then I want to move on to our next subject. This is very interesting, and obviously, I want you to continue doing your work. But so, was there 3 or 4 officers that showed up at your door? Because that is telling too.
There were 2 officers.
Yeah.
And it kind of looked like sort of the good cop, bad cop scenario. But there were 2 police officers, and yeah, I mean, I spoke to them for maybe 5 minutes, and I know people have been telling me, "Oh, you shouldn't have spoken to them, and you should have just told them to leave." But I didn't know if something had happened. Our kids were outside somewhere playing, and so it's you never know what's
Yep.
going on. But yeah, it to show up at a person's house on a Sunday afternoon, about a month and a half after the fact.
Yeah.
Um,
But
this
only
is
was it a week
intimidation.
after you started
What's
the
that?
consultations?
What's that?
Was it a week after you started the consultations?
It was approximately 4 days.
Yeah, 4 days. Nice. They really got onto that.
Yeah, I think they wanted to flex and to show, because I'm doing cancer consultations without asking the college for permission or without talking to the college. The college can go to hell, as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They committed very serious crimes. They were co-conspirators in the murder of hundreds of cancer patients, and so they can go to hell. I'm
Yeah.
not going to ask anybody's permission to continue being a physician.
And
But I
helping
think,
people, right? I mean, this
yeah,
is
and helping people,
the
exactly.
mission.
But I think it was, they needed to flex. They needed to flex their muscle. I'll give you one other thing. The Edmonton police. Then this is no joke. The Edmonton police. Now, I don't know if you're aware of a report or an investigative report that was done recently about the Edmonton police with freedom of information requests about the vaccine mandate, that the leadership of the Edmonton police knew that the vaccines were causing injuries, but they pushed through with the vaccine mandate anyways. And that was obtained. There were internal emails that were obtained by an investigator, and that report came out. It was covered by the Western Standard,
Mhm.
that the leadership of Edmonton police knew that they were going to be harming police officers through the vaccine mandate, but they pushed it through anyways. And
Wow.
there were internal emails about this. So I think it was the leadership of the Edmonton police then hired a lawyer to look at this report and to see if it had legal ramifications, and to analyze it legally. Well, they hired the lead counsel for the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta,
Oh, surprising.
Craig Boyer from Shores Jardine, who is also involved in sabotaging my medical license. They hired him as the legal counsel to look at this report and to see if they could be held legally liable for the vaccine mandate that they forced on
Hmm.
police officers.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that just goes to show you that this mafia, this healthcare mafia that commits crimes, allows cancer patients to die because they've stolen the money. They're so intertwined with the police. They're intertwined with big law firms, and of course judges. You get put in front of a judge. That judge used to be a college lawyer or has some kind of connection to this mafia. So it's I have to admit, it's very impressive the
Mhm.
way they have everything sealed.
Mhm.
Everything is sealed. Everything is interconnected, and no one can get at these guys.
Mm.
And certainly, Danielle Smith now is so afraid that if you bring up the college, she will say, well, if I speak about the college, they'll throw me in jail. So I
Jeez.
think we know who runs the province.
Wow. That's telling. Okay, so I do want to move on to the next subject
Yep.
because this is really, really blown up in the last couple of days. And that's in regard to ivermectin. You talk about ivermectin all the time. You talk about its benefits for cancer. You talk about, and hopefully I get this right, the fenbendazole
Yeah.
and mebendazole and I think it's the albendazole, and
Right.
all of the benefits in regard to cancer treatment.
Yeah.
And most recently, I'm going to bring this up here, if that's okay, is you just did a piece because Dr. Yeadon had come out in contrary, saying that there was severe consequences of taking ivermectin. Do you want to talk about that and just talk about this post that you made?
Yeah. So there is, there's about a 5-minute clip that is circulating on social media, and
I've got it here.
it has people just absolutely panicked. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, did you see this? Did you see this? What do you think?" Right? And I must have gotten maybe, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 emails in of people panicking about this video. And Dr. Mike Yeadon is one of these freedom fighters who used to be vice president for Pfizer. He used to be in, I guess, pharmaceutical research, and but he's been, sort of in the freedom arena for many years, talking about the dangers of the vaccine, COVID vaccines, and so on. And then he comes out and he says in this clip that ivermectin is the most violent anti-fertility drug that he has ever seen. And he sort of goes on ranting about it, how the freedom doctors who are famous now, 100 times more famous than him. Now I'm assuming he's alluding to doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Pierre Corey, maybe Dr. Robert Malone. And he says that these doctors were pushing ivermectin from beginning, and that it was all a setup because the big pharma wanted the people who didn't want to take the vaccine. They wanted to push this, this big anti-fertility drug on them, and that it all makes sense in this depopulation agenda.
Right.
And as soon as I heard that, as soon as I saw the clip, I thought, like, I had red flags going up immediately, and logically it wasn't making sense to me, because I thought, okay, well, if they went through the trouble for 4 years of pharmacies denying ivermectin prescription, and basically now there's all these lawsuits. There's going to be lawsuits against the pharmacies that basically practiced medicine without a license and refused to fill ivermectin prescriptions. All the pharmacies took on these massive legal liabilities just to play some 5D chess, so that some of us who didn't want the vaccine but were taking ivermectin would then be part of a depopulation plan because our fertility would be affected. Like logically, it kind of didn't make too much sense. Although, he tries to make it sound, fairly coherent, and you think, oh, well, maybe it's possible. But the other red flag for me was the timing. Is that okay? So we've been talking about ivermectin for 4 years, and just as they're about to roll out a new set of mRNA vaccines. And we know that because the US government has put in an order of $170 million to Moderna to produce influenza H5N1 mRNA vaccines. And we now have the media talking about monkeypox vaccines because they're trying to stir up monkeypox right now. So you're telling me that now that they're just about to roll out a new mRNA product, that there's this revelation, this discovery that ivermectin has somehow this whole time, and no one knew, but this whole time it has been this toxic anti-fertility drug, despite 40 years of use, despite it being over 1 billion doses having been administered to humans, and despite it being used on livestock and prize horses all around the world. But no one knew, no one spoke up. But Dr. Yeadon shows up right before we're about to be locked down, right before another pandemic is about to be declared with disease X, whatever it may be, influenza or monkeypox or something else. And just someone handed him a dossier, some man in the shadows hands him a dossier, and he has the proof that ivermectin is actually killing our testicles and ovaries, and no one knew. No, this is the World Economic Forum played 5D chess on all of us, and the entire freedom movement's been compromised the entire time because they've been pushing ivermectin. It is. I mean, it's such a preposterous, you know, claim. And I thought, okay, well, let's. And I thought, okay, I have to set I have to set aside an evening to do this and to look into this, because um, it got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
This claim has gotten a lot of traction. A lot of people are panicked. And I thought, okay, well, most of the people who are taking ivermectin are out of the reproductive age, anyways. But okay, that's an aside. So it's a pretty crappy, fertility anti-fertility agent. If all the well, I mean, how many kids do you know taking ivermectin? How many
Right.
teenagers? Even how many young adults do you know taking ivermectin? Right.
Yeah.
To the point where it may affect their fertility. So I think the claim was quite preposterous, and I thought, okay, well, let me just do what I do, which is let's just dive into the research and look at this. And I spent a number of hours going through all the research, fertility research on ivermectin. And I can see how he can try to make a claim in the sense that there are mouse studies and rat studies where they inject them with 100 times the dose that anyone would be using. And some fertility issues show up, some aberrations, some abnormalities in the spermatozoa, and so on. And this is mostly confined to mice and rat studies. And there's a couple of them, and I include them in my Substack article, and a description of what, giving these poor rats 100 times the dose that we're taking, what it does to their reproductive organs. So there's some toxicity there. Once you get to the rabbits, there's one study that says absolutely no effect, and then there's another study that says there's some effect, but it might be reversible after a little while. And once you start getting to the larger mammals, and it's mammals like rams and bulls, and they look at breeding rams, which I didn't know that there was such a thing as breeding rams or breeding bulls, stallions. There's either no effect, or in some of the studies they say there's actually a fertility benefit, that the animals that had been treated with ivermectin actually have a fertility benefit. And so it's sort of a fascinating. And there was another study on humans where they were basically, this was in Africa, and they were treating a population of a village with ivermectin, and there were women that were getting pregnant, or they were pregnant. They didn't know that they were pregnant, and they analyzed all the pregnancies and said, okay, there's absolutely no indication of any kind of toxicity in this population of women who were getting ivermectin, but they didn't know that they were pregnant, or they were getting pregnant while they were getting it, and so on. So in terms of evidence, I didn't see any evidence in terms of the larger mammals that and there's not a single study. There's not one study to support Dr. Eden's claim. Now, he does say that, studies in rats and rabbits, and then he says, some limited studies in humans. So I would love to see him produce the evidence that he has for that claim. But as far as I can see right now, there is nothing there.
Right. It was quite shocking. I know that I've been a proponent for ivermectin as well, and I think that that it did kind of shock all of us. But when you because we have new lenses, hopefully anybody in the freedom movement has new lenses to look at everything today, is that we question everything. And when Eden, who obviously has been well known for speaking out against these Pfizer, the pharma psychopaths, you tend to believe him. And of course, we all sort of went, we all gasped and went, "Holy smokes, really?"
Yeah.
And but we do need to look at it like we need to question everything.
And the other thing I would tell you is that those fertility studies were not done during COVID. A lot of them were done before COVID. Some of them go back to the early 2000s. Some of them go back to the 90s. And so, this idea that this was some kind of a brilliant 5D chess, where they spent 4 years trying to corral all of us to take ivermectin just so that they could maybe go after our testicles and ovaries. you know, it doesn't hold water, unfortunately. But
It sounds
it's you know, it's a clever clip. It certainly gets a lot of clicks because you could tell he seems to genuinely believe it.
mhm.
So his body language seems to be of someone who genuinely believes what he's claiming. He's passionate about warning people.
Yeah,
I mean, that's basically what he's doing in that live speech. He's warning people about it, and of course, he's casting aspersions on you know, the rest of the freedom movement that has been anyone who has been in support of ivermectin. So maybe I'm one of these. You know, these deep state undercover players, and you know, for 8 years I've been putting on a show just so that I could push ivermectin and get everybody infertile, right? I mean,
oh well, thanks for finally admitting it. My God.
I fall into that. If you think about it, I fall into that category as well.
Sure.
I'm not a famous American doctor. Like I'm sure he's referring to Dr. McCullough, Malone, Pierre
Right.
Corey. You know, I may not be a famous American doctor, but maybe I'm part of this deep state operation as well. So it's you know, but it got a lot of traction, and
Yeah,
it got a lot of people panicked.
sure did.
And
I brought up another post that I saw just I think it was yesterday.
yeah,
I don't know who this John Bow is, but I thought that this post in regard to the Yeadon video was really on the mark, and I'm just sharing it here, obviously, for people to see it as well. But uh, boy, did it cause a stir. Um,
it did.
anyway, I'm really hoping, you know, if we can get any wins from the premier that we have today, is that we would have the opportunity to have ivermectin available again, like it should be. It should be that you can just walk into a store and buy it, right?
Exactly. And it should be, because honestly, here's how I look at it. When people ask me, can I, you know, where can I get a prescription to get ivermectin? And I always reply, why do you need a prescription? Whose permission are you asking?
Mhm.
Ivermectin is available over the counter in most of the world. So you're asking for permission, something that no one has to ask in Mexico or India or many countries, Thailand. There's so many countries in the world where you get it over the counter. It is 100 times safer than Tylenol. So you're going to be asking someone permission, or you're going to be waiting for someone to give you a prescription. You don't need a prescription.
Mhm.
People can get ivermectin. You can get ivermectin. It is safe. It is FDA approved. Even if it, you know, wasn't FDA approved, like fenbendazole, people are still taking it. And so you don't need permission from the mainstream medical establishment to try to heal yourself or treat yourself. And this is what it comes down to, is get outside of the mainstream medical establishment. Stop asking for permission, you know, because if you rely on the mainstream medical establishment, that establishment wants you dead. That establishment wants you dead, or preferably disabled, because at least when you're disabled or you have
Right.
cancer, they can make money off you, and they can drain you of all your money before you die. And that's what's happening to my cancer patients, is they, you know, all they get offered, and not in Edmonton, because or not in Alberta, because you can't get cancer care in Alberta, but the cancer patients in other places like BC or the United States and so on, all they get offered is chemo, chemo, chemo. And every time
Mhm.
chemo fails, you get offered another chemo and another chemo. And you can just go and click the cash register every time
Yeah.
that you get offered a new chemo, because that is how they're making their money. And so you don't need anyone's permission to heal yourself or treat yourself. So stop thinking within the confines of the, you know, the mainstream medical establishment. And that's why I'm offering cancer consultations, and I am telling the college to go to hell.
Mm.
If the college shows up with the Edmonton police to my house again, I will hand over the boxes of evidence that I have implicating the college in murder of up to 2,500 cancer patients in Alberta, evidence implicating the college in court fraud by bringing and submitting fraudulent documents to the Court of King's Bench and Court of Appeal, and implicating the college in extortion, which is a violation of the Criminal Code of Canada, and conspiracy to commit extortion, which I have boxes of evidence of college officials, the college registrar, Dr. Scott McLeod, or Michael Cafaro, or his lawyer, Craig Boyer, committing crimes for which they should be in prison for the rest of their life. If the Edmonton police wants to show up at my door again, I will give them a care package to go back to the police station with.
Mm-hmm.
They can spend, the next couple of years sifting through it and going after the real criminals who are sitting at their offices at the college or in downtown Edmonton at AHS headquarters.
Well, make sure to have copies of that, because if it goes into that, it's just going into.
I have digital copies of everything. Yeah. If my garage goes up in flames, it doesn't matter. There's copies of this all over the place.
I know we're really short on time. I have one other thing I want to make sure to ask you. So you're going to be consulting cancer patients. Now, is there a way to work with oncologists that are still out there? Like, do they have specific ones that they go to, or what is your suggestion?
There are oncologists reaching out to me in the United States. There are oncologists reaching out to me in other countries. There will not be an oncologist in Canada who will work with you with either repurposed drugs or an alternative treatment plan. Nobody in Canada is going to put their neck on the line until we get the colleges cleaned up. And right. It doesn't look like Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, and I had very high hopes for her. It just doesn't look like she has the will to take on.
Right.
She says she's taking on the AHS. So far, nothing's happened. The NDP is still firmly in charge of AHS. And it seems like someone has really scared her in terms of the college, because whenever the college gets brought up, she gets extremely frightened. So I don't know if her life has been threatened. I don't know if she's been physically threatened, but you could tell something has drastically changed from when she was talking about dissolving college to talking about how she can't touch the college because the healthcare mafia will basically get her thrown in jail. Right. So she's been threatened. There's no question about that. It's sad. I'm very disappointed in it. I still think that maybe she has good intentions and maybe had good intentions, but there's just not enough political capital. There's not enough courage, I think, to bring about any serious changes. And I've said this sort of in one of my recent podcasts, that I think what we're going to see is we're going to see UCP disintegrate into warring factions. They're going to be just warring back and forth, the Kinney faction, the Smith faction, there might be other factions, and they're just going to be fighting over the scraps of Alberta until such a time that Nenshi and NDP can come in, take over, and then I think we can say goodbye to Alberta. I probably will say goodbye to Alberta at that point.
All right. Well, maybe we'll see you in Russia, because apparently they're asking us to.
I'd prefer Greece, but it's Russia's close enough, so maybe I can visit you in Russia from my house in Greece by the beach or by the water.
Sounds good. I thank you so much for joining me, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, we want to help people to get this message out. Share, and continue to do your great work. I appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and everyone, stick around here. We'll see you very shortly. Thank you so much for watching Unscrew the News. I appreciate your participation in freedom in Canada. Share this information and help others to wake up. God bless.